This over here is the RTX 5060 Ti. The question is, how good is it for creators? Because I'm gonna tell you things that gamers didn't tell you, and I have tested it for creative professionals. As you know, NVIDIA is going through some stuff right now, and you might be thinking, you know, is this worth it? Because this has more VRAM than the 5070. This guy over here. So is it actually worth getting the 5060 Ti or 5070, and what are the actual performance differences? And perhaps you're using an RTX 3070, remember that old guy? Well, if you're coming from there, is it worth upgrading to 5060 Ti? We're gonna find out. Let's go. It's so annoying. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars to just change my Windows wallpaper just because my Windows isn't licensed. Well, why don't you try Hookies? That's a ton cheaper, and if you use the code TN20, you get it even cheaper. What do you mean? How do I get it, and how is it possible? Well, see this video here, or the one you're watching? Click in the link on the video description, add the Windows 11 CD product to the cart, proceed to checkout, add the code TN20 for the extra discount. So what, the Windows 11 Pro OEM key is just $23.22? Yeah. Choose the preferred payment option and complete the purchase. The key will be available on the purchased orders in a few moments. Copy the key and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and you're all done. Oh, that was easy. Is that Ryan Gosling? No. Anyway, by the way, the same discount code also works website-wide, so go check out other products, maybe like Microsoft Office. I want to start with a very important aspect here, which is that right now I'm recording this on 2nd of May. NVIDIA still doesn't have full support to all of the applications that are available. I'm talking about Octane render. There are some beta versions, I believe, available. I think the CEO of the Octane render said that there is something available. It's very, very soon, but I can't find it publicly available. TESTBENCH or Redshift, again, not fully supported. Now, we do have Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, both of them which have public beta versions available, but not full support. This is May, and we still don't have full support. So if you're thinking that, you know, flipping heck, I can't buy one because it's so expensive, calm yourself down, because it's not ready to be bought yet, if that makes sense. At the same time, if you're gonna buy one, is it gonna work? Kind of. In video editing and photo editing, of course it works. You're just not gonna be able to utilize all of the features, because the main features that you should be buying them for, they're not supported yet. I'll get to that in minutes. So looking at the specs, what actually is going on? Where exactly is this going to land? Bear in mind, there are two versions of this available. The 8GB version and the 16GB version. I have the 16GB version. Probably for most of the creative professionals, the 16GB version is the better option for you. 8GB, not particularly good and not enough in 2025. This 5060 Ti 16GB is a GB206 GPU or die. So what does that mean? Now, each family of the GPUs have their own die. They have their own die size. Let's say they check the die and they find out that some of the transistors are not working, then they can actually switch some of the cores off and then actually give you a lower performance one. So for example, from the factory, they want all the 5090 dies to come out as 5090, but then some of the things don't work. Boom, you get a 5080, if that makes sense. The same they do with the 5070 Ti and so on. And sometimes the 5080 die comes down to 5070 Ti, and then sometimes the 5080 die comes down to 5070 Ti and so on. This guy here, what that means is it's not a 5070 die. It's a completely different one. And as you can see, the die size is extremely small. It's so small. Compared to the 4070 Super, 294 millimeters squared, the 5070, 263 millimeters square. This is 181 millimeters square. It's a lot smaller than the other ones. If you look at the 5070 and 4070 Super, you can see that they're kind of similar die sizes, but this is considerably smaller. What that means is basically the die where you fit all the transistors in, it's smaller, so physically you can't fit that many transistors in there, meaning that it's just a weaker GPU. Sometimes they try to make CUDA cores more or less or whatever, but you just can't. And as you can see, The 5060 Ti has 4,608 CUDA cores, which is actually less than the 3070 from a few years ago. Tensor cores, 144, quite a bit less again compared to the 4070 Super. Now, why is the 4070 Super there rather than 4070? Because that is the previous kind of upgrade, and it is a little bit of a higher level GPU, but it's previous generation, so we should be close, if that makes sense. We've got GDDR7 RAM on this, not GDDR6X compared to the previous generation. The memory bus is 128-bit. That can be a little bit of an issue in certain cases. We'll see how it performs in benchmarks. The memory bandwidth is actually exactly the same as 3070, which is fascinating. We've got PCIe 5.0 bus interface X8, so there's 8 lanes of PCIe going there. So if your motherboard doesn't support PCIe Gen 5, it's going to run at PCIe Gen 4 or 3. Because of the power of this, you shouldn't be bottlenecked in any of this. So in some ways, I'm glad that they did PCIe Gen 5 X8, because X16 would have been just a waste of money. You don't need that big of a bandwidth, if that makes sense. The cache is exactly the same as RTX 3070, and L2 cache is quite a bit more than the 30 series. We've got 32 megabytes, but the 5070, the one step up, has 48 megabytes of cache. Now, the TDP for this is 180 watts, but just wait, because there's quite a lot more than you can do with this. MSRP $429. Okay, that's a big joke, isn't it? If you want to check out the latest pricing, leave it in the comment section below. I would love to just see what it actually is all around the world. If you can convert it to dollars, that would be awesome, because then we can all measure where is it cheaper, and then we can be friends and just send it to each other, if that makes sense. I'm only joking. I'm using Intel i9 12900K, ASUS Strix Z690 D4 motherboard with 64 gigabytes of Kingston Fury Beast 3600 mega transfers per second DDR4. We've got Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360mm AIO. The SSD we're using, Samsung 980 Pro 1 terabyte for the SSD, and the Be Quiet Pure Power 1200 watt power supply. If you want to check out any of the cards or the TESTBENCH setup, they're linked in the description below. As well as some of the build guides. If you want to build some, PCs that are actually affordable, go check it out. And if you need personalized help, I always get back to my direct messages in 24 hours. Link below as well. So then, what GPUs are we actually going to be comparing with this 5060 Ti? We've got 5070, I've got 4070 Super, and an RTX 3070. In Geekbench 6, 5070 is 26% faster in OpenCL and about 32% faster in Vulkan. The 4070 Super is about 36% faster in OpenCL and Vulkan scores, which is quite impressive. And the 3070 is actually only 7 to 8% slower in the OpenCL and Vulkan scores. This actually shocked me quite a bit, because the RTX 3070 for quite a while ago is very, very close. Looking at the AI performance, we've got Geekbench 6 AI 5070 is about 13 to 21% faster in the single half and quantized scores. The 4070 Super is interestingly about 27% faster in single and quantized scores, but only 4.8% faster. RTX 3070 is about 13 to 28% slower compared to the 5060 Ti. So interestingly, 4070 Super still kind of beats the 5060 Ti, even though having less VRAM. The 5060 Ti has the most VRAM in this case here. Still not quite as impressive. Compared to the 30 series, we've done a big jump in AI with the 40 series and 50 series, but it seems to me right now that the 50 series kind of jump compared to the 40 series is not as big as the 40 compared to the 30. Moving on to Photoshop, the 5070 is about 1.6% slower overall, basically the same. The 4070 Super is about 3.5% slower, and then the 3070 is about 5% slower. Now, the newer GPU does make a little bit of a difference, but interestingly, maybe the clock speed of the 5060 Ti are a little bit faster. It does seem to be perform a little bit better. I'm making every single test about 5 times and calculating the average, making sure that there's no too highs or too low scores that are random, so we can get the most accurate results here. Moving on to Lightroom Classic, the 5070 is literally exactly the same overall score, which is amazing. The active score is slightly faster, passive slightly slower, so within margin of error. The 4070 Super is about 4% faster, interestingly, even though with less VRAM and all sorts. The RTX 3070 is again about 1% faster. Active score is about 4% faster, which is ridiculous. So what do we say say about the photo editing here. Basically, for Adobe photo editing, general performance, these GPUs don't make that big of a difference. There are certain tasks in each application in Photoshop, Lightroom, where you're using AI, and at that point you can utilize the GPU sometimes and some of the other exporting tasks or something like that. Then the newer GPUs will become a little bit better than the older generation. Compared to the 40 to 50 series, not that big of a difference. 30 series starts to fall behind a little bit more. What I would say is, regardless of what you're doing, most likely for photo editing, either one of these GPUs is an overkill for you. What about video editing? Because that is a little bit more demanding. Now we can use GPU effects, certain things are encoded and certain things not. Let's talk about the encoders first. The biggest change for 50 series on NVIDIA has been the NVIDIA NDEC, NVDEC, decoders actually. So NVIDIA decoders upgrade compared to the previous generations. The encoders got an upgrade as well. But basically, with the decoders upgrade, now we finally have full support for 422 10-bit footage, H.264 and 5, meaning that now when you shoot your mirrorless camera and you pull out your 10-bit footage 422, it's not accelerated on the CPU anymore, which is very hard to play back. It's going to be super smooth on the 50 series. Any of the 50 series will play it back absolutely amazingly. Thing is though, with the different generations of 50 series, 90, 80, 70, 60 and so on, you actually start to get less and less encoders and decoders. This 5060 Ti has actually exactly the same amount as on the 5070. 5070 and below will have only one encoder and one decoder. 5070 Ti has two encoders and one decoders. And if you go further up, 5080 has two, and then 5090 has 3 and 2. If that makes sense. Can we utilize these media engines? Not fully yet. In beta versions, you can. It's beta, and there's a reason why it's on beta. Probably the stability is not its best suit, if that makes sense. So as a creator, I'm not going to test something that is in beta. It's cool to know that it can perform that. If you want to see this on the channel, I've done it on DaVinci Resolve and in Premiere Pro. Go check it out so we've tested the beta versions, but right now the public availability is still not there. Now looking at the Premiere Pro then with, that's not fully supporting the 50 series. It does do everything that the 40 series just doesn't give you the extra edge with the 422 playback and so on. The 5070 is about 5 to 6.2% faster in the overall scores. Interestingly, the long GOP score is slower, about 8%, and that goes across the board with the 4070 Super as well. The 5060 Ti has got very, very good H.264 and 5 playback. Now, the GPU effect scores, whether standard or extended, you can see is a lot better when we go to the 5070. Is it because of the memory bus, more CUDA cores? But the 5070 is a whole other league. 32 up to 33% faster on the 5070, which is ridiculous. Interestingly, even 4070 Super is about 21% faster, up to 21% faster, which is ridiculous. Intra-frame, again, like ProRes, we're looking at the 5070 about 6 to 7% slower. So interestingly, the 5060 Ti kind of keeps up with the 5070 quite well in any of the codecs apart from GPU effects. The 4070 Super is about 1 to 3.6% faster, so slightly faster in the overall scores, but the long GOP score, because of the new media engines in there, is a little bit slower. Interestingly, the GPU effects though are better on the 4070 Super. So the 70 series seems to be a whole other level. Compared to the RTX 3070 now here, the standard and extended overall scores are up to 20% slower. So there is quite a significant jump compared to the 3070, especially the double amount of VRAM capacity. That can be huge in certain workflows. Long GOP score, again, about 90% faster. That's ridiculous. Interframe, so if you're working with ProRes, for example, not that big of a difference. About 8%, somewhere around there, faster on the 5060 Ti, which is not a big thing. The GPU effects are up to 27% faster on the 5060 Ti. So here in video editing, we can see that the 5060 Ti can be interesting jump from the 30 series. 40 series still kind of performs the same depending on the price, if you can find the 70 series there. And the 5070 is not that much better in either of the tasks apart from the GPU effects. In After Effects, I am not giving you the usual benchmarks because Geekbench released a new benchmark where more of the GPU and actual performance is utilized, and it's a lot better benchmark, but I have only one other card that I have benchmarked compared to the 5060 Ti. So let me know which cards would you like to see for After Effects. We're gonna have to just test a whole bunch of new cards, so let me know what you want to see. But compared to the Intel Arc B580, which you can get probably half the price of what you can get with the 5060 Ti here, the Arc is about 32% slower in the overall scores. The 2D tracking, not that big of a difference. The same with tracking, not that big of a difference at all. In extended 2D, there is a little bit of a difference. So what does that mean? It means that the 2D and then the tracking, it's mostly to do with CPU hardware. The 3D tracking is where the GPU actually kicks in, and you can see that the Arc is about 70% slower in the standard 3D, and then the 3D extended, we're about 66% slower. Let's move on to DaVinci Resolve. And here the 5070 is about 3% faster in the basic score. And then bear in mind the basic, overall basic, is the free version of DaVinci Resolve. The standard is where we paid it, and then now we can actually fully utilize some of the GPU. So if you're running DaVinci Resolve, highly recommend upgrading your actual subscription to the studio rather than the basic version. That might give you more performance than an actual new hardware. Standard overall is about 21% faster, extended overall 29% faster. So what does that tell us? That the 5070 is a whole other league of GPU, and DaVinci Resolve loves to use a lot of GPU. It is a lot faster, even though having more VRAM on the 5060 Ti, the 5070 is a lot faster. The long GOP score, interestingly, again, similar results, about 22.5% slower. That's quite a big thing. The raw score, 43% faster on the 5070. The GPU standard score, more than double on the 5070. That is ridiculous. That just shows that the 5060 Ti just really falls short on the actual GPU power of it. If we take in purely that GPU performance, that is a lot slower, which is ridiculous. Interestingly, Fusion score is a little bit slower on the 5070, and then the long GOP, again, in the extended scores, similar. Interframe, raw, and GPU effects can be up to 128% faster. AI score, almost double, 61% faster. 4070 Super, interestingly, standard overall 3% slower, extended overall about the same. But most of the things are actually faster on the 4070 Super, apart from the long GOP. Long GOP is a little bit better on the 5070, 5060 Ti, and then Fusion slightly slower as well. But if you're asking me which one would I get, I would probably get the 4070 Super, just because it is a little bit faster in most of the cases apart from long GOP score. 3070, how much have we improved? In overall extended and standard, we're only 3% slower on the 3070. That is not impressive. Long GOP, yes, about 28% slower, but come on, interframe standard, a little bit faster. Raw score, a little bit faster. GPU effects, 21% faster. That shows that the 5060 Ti is quite weak in the GPU effects. Not impressive at all. AI, only 2% slower on the 3070, and the Fusion about 7% slower on the 3070. But bear in mind, that's exactly the same as on the 4070 Super, big of a difference in there. The 5060 Ti doesn't really shine in DaVinci Resolve. It just shows that it's a little bit of a weaker GPU in here. So quick conclusion here for DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is a program that really can utilize the GPU. And when utilized, the 5060 Ti is not impressive, apart from long GOP scores. Everything else is kind of better on anything else. Even the 3070 is kind of the same as the 5060 Ti. That's not that big of an improvement there. Moving on to Blender, we can see that the 5070 is 34 to 45% faster in monster junk shop and classroom scenes. That is a huge leap between literally next tier GPUs. The 5060 Ti, yes, has more VRAM, extra 4 GB, but regardless, it is that much slower that maybe the 16 GB doesn't actually matter that much. The 4070 Super is up to 49% faster in the monster scene, 36% faster in the junk shop scene, and about 45% faster in the classroom scene. Now, it feels like the 5060 Ti, we're going a little bit backwards. I can't wait to actually test the 4070 Ti. I'll have to find my card where that one is, but it doesn't seem that big of a leap compared to the 40 series. RTX 3070 is about 22% slower in the classroom, 37% slower in the junk shop, and about 33% slower in the monster scene. So yes, it is slower, but I would have expected a little bit of a bigger increase when we get to the 50 series. Now, Octane Bench, not supported yet. Redshift, not supported yet. V-Ray, yes, let's take a look. The 5070 is literally more than double the performance in CUDA and RTX cores. More than double the performance. 4070 Super, 30% faster in CUDA and RTX cores. Ridiculous. The RTX 3070 is only 17 to 24% slower in the CUDA and RTX cores. That doesn't look that impressive to the 5060 Ti. Now let's talk about the power draw, because that is quite good news here. It pulls only 180 watts, which is very, very efficient. That's exactly what I've tested it on. 180 watts, it's pretty good. The thing is, when you have MSI Afterburner, I have never seen a GPU where I can increase the power limit to 130%. Extra 30%, just whack it on, no problem. And then we can pull 235 watts. That's a lot of OC room in there. Now this is an OC card here as well, but if you're a gamer and you want to OC this, there is quite a lot in store for this, what you can do. For creators, not worth it, don't do it. Stability, no, just not worth doing. But I thought it's worth mentioning for some people. Even if I'm OCing this, I don't see any performance increase really in creative benchmarks, just within margin of error again, so not worth doing. Let's take a look at the actual design then of this 5060 Ti from ASUS. This is the TUF gaming version. It's quite big. It's unnecessary big, because if you look at the temperatures are completely fine. It is like so below of its limits of the cooling, it's ridiculous. I've got the 5070 from Zotac here on the right side, and you can see that the length of the card is roughly about the same. And the TUF changed a little bit of its design. This get tough, game tough. I'm not sure about these slogans, but silvery design. It is plastic. There is no metal when we're looking at the round. There is a metal backplate though, but this shroud here all is plastic. When we go onto the side, we can really see that this is a lot thicker card. Like there's an extra slot for the 5060 Ti. That just shows me that it could easily be that small and that skinny, no problem. That 180 watts, we don't need that much cooling for this. It's ridiculous, really. It is quite high performance there. You can see that this bit here is plastic, and then the back plate here that bends over is metal. Which one do I like more? The Zotac is a little bit more minimal. And looking at the back plate, again, you can see how much thicker the TUF is. There is quite a bit of pass-through in there. The 5070 here has a lot more fins in terms of the fin density compared to the TUF, which means there's better airflow through and so on. There is quite an interesting RGB in the back of the TUF. The PCB of the 5060 Ti TUF is quite a bit longer than the 5070. 5070 look is short in there, but there's an extra inch or two that the TUF has on that side. You do have two BIOS, quiet and performance. Always keep it on performance because it's quiet regardless of what you're going to do with it. And finally, in terms of the outputs, exactly the same. We've got one HDMI and 3 display ports right there. Is the 5060 Ti 16 gigabytes actually worth it? And honestly, I've got some mixed feelings in here. It feels a little bit not impressive. I'm being quite positive here. It's not impressive at all, actually. What I mean by that is, coming from the 30 series, yes, if you have 3060 Ti, you might have double the frame rates in some of the games, but for creative professionals, it's not impressive jump. It seems like if you can go with the 40 series, see if you can get a little bit of a better deal in terms of for your money. The only thing why the 50 series is worth it for creators is if you are doing video editing in 422 10-bit. If that is your jazz and you're shooting, you're a freelancer that does a lot of that, wedding, you know, commercial shoots, whatever. If you're using 422 10-bit H.264 or 5, 4 or 5, okay, both of them, then the 50 series has a huge edge. But at that point, I'm thinking you might want to go with the 5070. I know it's kind of less VRAM, but it's so much better or so much more powerful GPU, if that makes sense. Where does AMD lie in all of this? With their RX 9070 cards, I was still waiting for my cards. It should have arrived months ago. I don't know where it is. Are they hiding the card from me? Probably. I was supposed to get it. AMD Contact said it should be already here, but I don't know where it is. I'm getting comments from you all the time. If you want to see it, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps. God bless. Bye-bye.